So last class we talked about transport across the cell membrane using passive transport, which could have been diffusion, osmosis, or facilitated diffusion. Today we're going to focus on the last type of transport, which is called active transport. So what's the difference between passive transport and active transport? Well, to be active, what do you need? You need energy. Okay, energy in the form of ATP. Some people use that as a hint for themselves. They think of active transport, so they think active ATP, active transport. Okay, now why would we need active transport? Why would we want to use energy? Okay, well, sometimes we have to move substances across the cell membrane, but against the concentration gradient. What does that mean? It means instead of going from high to low, we go from low to high. Okay, so think of that as like going uphill as opposed to going downhill. So examples are when, if there's stuff, especially for plants, let's say in the soil, they need nutrients from the soil, but the soil doesn't have a lot. The soil might have a low concentration, but the plant still wants as much nutrients as it can get from the soil, so it's going to use energy to get all of those nutrients out of the soil if it can. Okay, another example is the sodium-potassium pump, which is in your nervous system, which we're going to look at right now. Okay, so in the sodium-potassium pump, okay, this is the pump. Okay, so sodium is Na, potassium is K. Okay, watch what's going to happen. We're going to move the sodium, so the Na right now is in a low amount, right? Oh, bam. What just came in there? Wait, did you see it? Okay, let's go back. Okay, so sodium's moving from low. There's only 3 here, so that's a low concentration, whereas up here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here outside the cell, it says, has a high concentration of sodium. Inside the cell has a low concentration. So we're moving from low to high, and then watch what molecule pops in right over here. Okay, so here comes sodium in, and there goes the ATP. Okay, so the ATP is giving the energy. Now watch what happens to the protein to let those sodiums go through. Okay, so we need the energy from the ATP to allow the sodium to move through, and now the potassium can also come through. Okay, notice the potassium also moved from low, okay, a low amount to a high amount. Watch it happen again. Sodium from low to high, and then potassium from low to high using ATP. Okay, that's called a sodium-potassium pump. It's actually how your nervous cells work, your neurons. Okay, so active transport uses ATP, energy, right, to pump things from low to high concentrations. Okay, so let's just go review the difference between passive and active. Okay, on the left here we have the picture of passive transport, which is diffusion, osmosis, or facilitated diffusion. So the molecules are moving from a high concentration to a low concentration, going through the cell membrane. No energy is required. In facilitated diffusion, they're just using the help of that transport protein to get through the cell membrane. Okay, and then over here, this one's active transport, okay, where they're going from low to high, but they're using the ATP. So I like to use the slide as an analogy. Why do I have a picture of a slide here? I think of passive transport as like going down a slide. When you go down the slide, you're going from high to low, and you don't really need any energy. You just go down the slide, okay? But if you wanted to climb up the slide, to go from low up to high, you would need energy to do that. So active transport's like climbing up the slide, and passive transport is like going down the slide. There's 2 other kinds of active transport, okay, and they're how big molecules can get into the cell. So watch this right now, okay. In this video, there's 2 things called endocytosis and exocytosis. It's just how we get big things into the cell membrane. So watch, okay, this cell is basically eating a bacteria or some form of food, okay. So we take the molecule in, okay, or we take liquids in. Okay, those are both endocytosis, or this here is a special kind of endocytosis where molecules bind with the protein receptors, okay, and bring it in. Okay, or we can send things out of the cell. That's called exocytosis. So notice we've got a package here. This package here is called a vesicle. And notice it's blue, just like the cell membrane, because it's actually made out of the same thing. The Golgi actually probably made this package to send these molecules, probably some proteins, out of the cell. So this is exocytosis. So this is kind of fun. Watch this. So this is endocytosis, exocytosis. Endo comes in, exo goes out. Okay? So exo, why? Exocytosis, exo means out, cyto means cell. So exocytosis is when we move molecules out of the cell. All this says is what we just watched. There's usually these packages, vacuoles or vesicles made by the Golgi, that surround the molecule, fuse with the cell membrane, and release their contents. The word fuse just means, okay, the word this right here, as soon as those membranes meet right there, they're fusing together. So fuse means to sort of stick together there to get those molecules out of the cell. Okay, so again, exocytosis, exo is out, cyto is cell. It's releasing large molecules outside of the cell. Or sometimes if their molecule itself is not large, there's just a lot of them. Okay, endocytosis, endo means into the cell. Oh, I didn't write that down. Endo means in, cyto still means cell, so it means into the cell. So the cell membrane surrounds the material to bring it in. Okay, and we're going to watch this video on YouTube to show you an actual amoeba eating a piece of food. Okay, so here's an amoeba, and we're going to look right over here. Okay, this right there, that's the piece of food. So watch. Okay, I know the resolution's not great, but the cytoplasm, you can see the cytoplasm of this amoeba moving. It's called streaming. Okay, and the cell membrane, watch how the cell membrane is surrounding the food, pinches together. Okay, now wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. There, do you see it? You see how it's like stuck inside now? That piece of food is swimming inside. Okay, because it has been stuck. It has been eaten by endocytosis. Okay, now sometimes instead of calling this endocytosis, it's called phagocytosis. Stop laughing. It's not funny. No. That always seems to bring about a giggle. Endocytosis has a special kind called phagocytosis, which literally means phag, or P-H-A-G, means to eat. And so it's called cell eating when the cells eat something. Like that amoeba just ate a piece of food. Okay, pinocytosis means cell drinking. Those you do not need to have memorized. And that's it for active transport. Okay, so active transport, endo and exocytosis, and then using the cell membrane to go from a low concentration to a high concentration using ATP.
Walker, if you are in the building, please call extension